And what's up, guys? Welcome back for another Total War Arena battle at the River Rubicon. This is my first attempt at this map. I've not played on it yet, so I'm really interested to see how it looks. Looks like we have a rather strong team composition. We've got a good mix of melee. Ranged, and artillery. 3 Cav players is a little much for me, unless hopefully if one of them is a different faction. Oh, this is a wide map. This is a really wide map, and it's got a river right there. It's got the Rubicon right through the middle. So, I have literally no idea what to do about this. I think we're gonna deploy at 1, and we're gonna draw a cock on the screen. Oh no, my record button is kind of blocking. I can't draw a cock on the screen. Oh, this river's not that big or wide. I guess we're gonna go up and we'll take the high ground. We'll learn from Anakin. We'll take the high ground and oh, enemy cav are right up here. This is close engagement already right away. So we've got level 4 cav over here. We're level 4 cav. I mean, if we had the hill advantage, probably good. It looks like he's either fallen back. Somebody ambushed and eliminated someone already on our team. That's probably for the best. So, here they come. We need to activate our momentum buff, because they are hot on our heels. And they just pulled off their charge. They hit us just slightly on the back. We're going to get the hell out of here, though, I think. Take a little bit of damage. None of our teammates appear to be too interested in what's going on. Enemy team's got elephants. They've got war dogs. I'm not seeing any soft targets that we might be able to exploit or go after yet. Here comes those enemy cav again. They're going to be, I have a feeling, they're going to be hot on our tail. He got a little taste of it, and he's going to be hot on our tail for the rest of the match. We've got archers. We've got war dogs over here. This is a great map. I'm really liking this. Like, just look at this. This is like, there's enough obstruction that you have to kind of circle your way around, but at the same time, there's not too much obstruction that you can't move about freely. I think we're going to pull a Yui, and we're going to swing back in between, up behind. Yeah, we are. That's exactly what we're going to do. This teammate's, oh, he's going to pull a fan. He knows this map. This guy knows this map. That's, I almost said disheartening. Not disheartening, but that's, certainly a good thing to know. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of prowl up here. We're going to prowl, and we're going to get ready. We're going to let these infantry come in, and we're going to hit them with the anvil from the... Oh. What? We already... We we capped the enemy base. Dude, how does that happen? That happened in like 3 minutes. How long was that battle even? We didn't even get to do anything. It's going to give us no experience. 65 XP, 2000 silver. What the hell even just happened? Who went... So it looks like 5 of our teammates just went around and capped the enemy base. And we somehow did better than 2 people. That's 680. How did we... It's support. We got 600 support points. See, this is what I don't get about this game. It's so bizarre. So we're gonna queue up. We're gonna see. It's weird. I wanted to explore that map. That was my first time on Rubicon. That's really weird. Yeah, that's odd. So I don't want to call that an episode. That was literally 3 minutes. So we're gonna jump into another match. We're gonna call it all one episode. Hopefully the matchmaking doesn't take too long. It's usually taking about a minute and a half. Take a sip from the beer. We're drinking Shock Top tonight. I know usually on this channel I talk about whiskey. Oh, the current bottle of whiskey is called Buffalo Trace. Buffalo Trace, look it up. It is my new favorite off-the-shelf bourbon. My definition for off-the-shelf being a bottle that costs less than $50. So they will stock it on the shelf where it could easily be shoplifted, I guess. They don't keep it in any safes or behind any locks or anything like that. So depending where you live, your off-the-shelf price range might be a little higher, or every single bottle of liquor might have one of those security tab cap things on the top of it. But Buffalo Trace, best fucking bourbon I have ever had. It tastes sort of like Irish whiskey. I'm an Irish whiskey guy through and through. I love Tullamore. I love Bushmills. Jameson is always good. I had couple other, like County Cork, a bottle of what do you call it? Two Gingers wasn't bad, and that's a mixing whiskey. Teutoburg Forest. Here we go. This isn't a bad battle. Glendullah, one of my favorite whiskeys of all time. It's an Irish whiskey. It sounds like Scotch, Glendullah. That sounds Scottish, but it's actually Irish. It's Ulster. It's North Irish, the part of Ireland that's still part of the UK. So it's an Irish whiskey that's made like in the fashion that they make Scotch. It's not. It's interesting. I would recommend going up and picking up a bottle of this Glendullah 4-year, a Glendullah 8-year. There might be more than that, but I've had the 4-year and the 8-year, and the 8-year is fantastic. If you here's the rule of thumb with whiskey, guys. If you're gonna drink whiskey, don't pay attention to the year. If you're trying new brands and new flavors of whiskey, don't pay attention to the year. Don't go out if you've just watched Parks and Recreation and Ron Swanson talks about Lagavulin all the time. I have a 16-year or that's an 18-year. I can read the case from here. I have an 18-year Lagavulin up on the shelf right now. This is my third bottle of Lagavulin. They make a Lagavulin 8-year. They make a Lagavulin 12-year. They make a 16-year. They make an 18-year. I don't know if they make a 4-year or not. But I had an 8-year first. I tried an 8-year at a buddy's place. It was good. Went out, got I think a bottle of the 12-year, and that was good. And then when my brother got married, my dad got a bottle of the 18-year. Fantastic. But the flavor is all the same. The year doesn't matter. The year makes the flavor stronger and it makes it smoother. So you get more flavor and you get less bite. Like if you've drank Jack Daniels before, if you've drunk Jack Daniels before, you'll know that harsh fucking whiskey taste, that where it burns going down your throat, and there's good burn and there's bad burn, and Jack Daniels is bad burn. That is bad burn whiskey. That is not the type of burn you want to have out of a whiskey. So, bearing that in mind, don't go out and buy an 18-year or a 12-year or a 14-year. Don't go out. Don't if there's a 20, 30, 40 dollar option for a whiskey, and that's their entry level option, go and try that, because their high tier, their top shelf, their out of the case version of whiskey is gonna be way better flavors of the same thing. It's gonna be a lot stronger, a lot richer, but ultimately it's gonna be the same thing as that first bottle that you try, as the lesser year, as it were. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out where we want to go. Trying to find places to ambush. So that's my 2 cents on whiskey. Another good example with that is, like, if you like Jameson, you like John Jameson. Don't go out and go out, and if you know that you like John Jameson, then go out and buy a bottle of Cask Mates. Go out and buy a bottle of the Black Barrel. Both delicious, both very good. But try regular Jameson first, and that's the way to kind of think about it. Just because somebody on a TV show or not tells you that the that Lagavulin is the best whiskey, blah 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 blah. Don't go out and don't drink something that you don't enjoy drinking. Um, that's the end of the day. So anywho, we're drinking Shock Top tonight. We're not even drinking whiskey tonight. Um, we are not even drinking whiskey tonight. We're drinking Shock Top. It's come down in price. I don't know. Shock Top must be really popular for them to bring the price down, like they have been, at least in my area. Looks like it's brewed in St. Louis, and I'm in outside of Chicago, not in Chicago, but in very much so greater Chicago. And I used to be close to the city. We just moved farther away from the city to save money because I am a dad. I've got two kids. We've got number 3 coming in July because I don't know how condoms work, and I have no plans to figure out how condoms work. So our third and final is coming in July. Um, fuck, man, what do we even do here? We charge. Um, well, that went well. And now we're starting to take that damage that we don't want. Gotta get out of here. I mean, I think I'm distracting the enemy enough in this game not to switch topics from whiskey and drinking to something that isn't whiskey and drinking, but that's what I'm doing. I think I'm distracting him enough to justify my existence. Let's swing back up north. Anyhowsels, Buffalo Trace, best bourbon I ever had. They also make a brand or a bottle called called Rip Van Winkle, which is one of the highest rated bourbons of all time. So another perfect example. Don't go and buy a fucking 180 dollar bottle of Rip Van Winkle. I haven't tried Rip Van Winkle. All I know is Rip Van Winkle or Van Winkle bourbon is made by Buffalo Trace. It's made by the Buffalo Trace distillery. And I had a couple coworkers recommend it to me. So instead of going and buying a $180 $200 bottle of Van Winkle, I went and I got a $25 bottle. 24. I think my wife got a discount on it. It was 20, 23, 24, $25 bottle of Buffalo Trace, and it's the best bourbon that I've ever had. And that's how you find. So now I go, all right, I've had the Buffalo Trace. They make this other brand, this other line, this other franchise of a drink, and it's called Van Winkle. I'm gonna go and try Van Winkle next because Buffalo Trace is fucking delicious. It's the same thing with Tullamore. Tullamore is my favorite whiskey of all time. It's my favorite whiskey of all time. A regular bottle of 20 Tullamore, that's a $21, $22 bottle. $22 bottle. There's nothing to brag about. It's aged 4 years. It's not. It's not super fancy. But then you go and you say, oh, or not you go and you say, you go and you do, oh, well, Tullamore makes all of these limited editions. Like there's like an 8 year, they have a 45 year, they have a couple other brands, stuff that you wouldn't see in your normal grocery store or anything like that. Like you'd have to go to a liquor store, you'd have to maybe order them, and I have what Tullamore do, and they are delicious. Um, and that also has something to do with the distillery. Tullamore is made at the Middleton Distillery in Ireland, which is widely regarded as the best distillery in Ireland. They make Black Barrel there. They make Cask Mates there. They make I think some Kilbeggan there. There's a whole number of different Irish whiskies that are actually made at Middleton. There's a Middleton Special Reserve, which is one of the highest rated whiskeys in the world. That probably the highest rated Irish whiskey in the world. I think it's called Special Reserve. I can't remember off the top of my head what it's called. Um, but I mean, looking at your distillery, looking at who's making it, that's always a good thing. But something else to consider there with whiskey, and this is just turned. This isn't even about this fucking game anymore. Like, if you guys are watching fucking Total War Arena gameplay, you already know what's up. You already have an idea. Recapping kind of what we did there. Somebody was trying to do a backdoor cap on our base. They got about halfway there. We rolled back and defended, and another unit of cav came with us, and now we're getting back into the fighting. Okay, you're caught up. Back to fucking whiskey. Back to the important shit. Um, back to what we're doing. We're gonna play so poorly in this game, it won't matter. Um, but different whiskey distilleries, or not different whiskey distilleries, but different whiskey companies will go and they will place purchase orders with other distilleries, and they'll place orders. They'll make a mash bill. It's called a mash bill, and it's literally the mash bill is like that's essentially your whiskey's recipe, and it's not all of the recipe, but it's like the ingredients recipe. So it doesn't the mash bill doesn't dictate what kind of barrel it's aged in or where it's aged, or we're taking a bunch of friendly fire, dude. We're gonna type this in. Friendly fucking fire. Dude. Really? Fuck. Um. Dick. Oh, and now he stops. Now he stops. No, shoot at the big unit, you fucking tard. Dipshit. And he's not even shooting at the spears, you fuckhead. Um. Jesus Christ. I hate people. So much. You know what? That guy let me get. We're gonna. I hope those. Oh, those. This phalanx down here hit our archers. I'm tempted to let these um spears get on top of that guy because he was just sitting there fucking friendly firing my units. You fucking prick. So anywho, different distilleries, different whiskey companies, they'll place a purchase order for a mash bill. They'll put together a recipe, and that has nothing to do with the aging, that has nothing to do with the bottling, that has nothing to do with where it's, with how it's distilled, where it's distilled, what it's distilled with, what it's aged in, where it's aged in, or how it's bottled. But it's the ingredient, it's the cereals that go into it. So your mash bill, that's your corn, your wheat, your barley, and your rye. And um, oh Jesus Christ, I could talk about this stuff all day, guys. Nobody's got me going on it particularly, except I've got myself going on it in a particular fashion. So that's one of the exciting things about whiskey is that you'll have companies out there that place orders. So, for instance, Jameson, you can go to the Jameson distillery in Dublin. Fantastic, awesome. Go on your nice tour, blah blah blah. But that's where they just make. That's just where they make regular Jameson. That's where they make regular Jameson. So Guinness, which owns Jameson, when Guinness wants to make a nicer version of Jameson, and I could go into the history of Irish whiskey, it wasn't always like this. John Jameson had their own distillery. It wasn't in Dublin. It was in Galway. I think it was in Galway. Um, but they most of the Irish whiskey almost most of the Irish whiskey companies almost went out of business. They all almost went out of business. Um, but they made a comeback sometime around the 60s. So that's when I believe Bushmills. It was like Middleton and Bushmills were the only two. The Middleton distillery and the Bushmills distillery were the only two distilleries that were left after uh, the 1950s. But anywho, Guinness, they'll put together a mash bill, and then it'll be loosely based off of the John Jameson recipe, and they'll put together a purchase order, and they'll go to the Middleton distillery because it it's a better distillery than the Jameson distillery in Dublin, um, which is kind of hard to say because Jameson, I love John Jameson. They'll put it together and they'll go and they'll make cask mates, and they will make Jameson Black Barrel, and they'll make some limited edition Jamesons that come out from time to time, and those will be made at Middleton because Middleton is it's actually the most technologically advanced distillery in the world, but there's a little more to it than that. And we're gonna get friendly fire to death here. So we're just gonna go plant their base for a couple more points. But that's one of the really interesting things. Chivas Regal, if you ever get roped into drinking that swill, Chivas Regal tastes like shit, but on paper it should be one of the best whiskeys ever. What they do is they take a Highland whiskey, and then I think they take Highland Park, which is a whiskey from the Shetland Islands, which are off the north coast of Scotland, and then they take a whiskey from one of the Islay distilleries. The three big Islay distilleries are Lagavulin, Laphroaig, and Atbeg. I think it's Atbeg. Those are the three big Islay distilleries, and those are the highest rated, repeatedly highest rated distilleries in the world. So what Chivas Regal will do is they'll go and they will order cereals, your wheat, your corn, your barley, your rye. They will order that stuff or they will order a mash, which is post malt. So you take the cereals and you malt them together, or you malt them separately, however you want to malt them. And just if you're curious about malting, look it up. All they do is they spread it across. They for lack of a better description, they find a really nice and clean barn and they spread your cereal really thinly across the floor and they let it dry out. And then they add water to it, and then when after it's dried out and then they add the water to it and they let it sit a little bit more, it starts to ferment, and that's your malting process. So a company like Chivas, they'll order the cereals, they'll order the malting from all of these really high brand distilleries, and then they'll bring it to the lowlands where they distill it. And then no, they have to distill it because they get all the cereals from different. So they bring it there. They probably mash it, and if they don't mash it, then they mix the different mashes together, and then they distill it. They age it, and then they bottle it, and it tastes like shit. They get these super, super, super high quality ingredients from the biggest names, from the biggest Scotch names in Scotland. And looking at my shelf right now, the three bottles I've got Tullibardine, which is a lesser known but still delicious Scotch. I've got a Macallan 12 year, the Lagavulin 18 year. Those are the four Scotches I've got, and a Chivas Regal. And I think the Chivas Regal's an 8 year, but I can't tell from the case from over here because I'm looking into my kitchen from my family room. And I don't know if they take Macallan or if they take Lagavulin, but I know they take an Islay. They take ingredients from an Islay distillery, and Atbeg, Laphroaig, and Lagavulin. They're getting the same ingredients from the same fucking places, and they're making it ever so slightly differently. And those three distilleries are rated in the top. They're actually within 5 miles, less than 5 miles of each other. They're each within half a mile of each other. I think it's called Port Ellen on the Isle of Islay. You can take a boat to Port Ellen. You can get off in Port Ellen and then walk half a mile up the road, and you're at the Lagavulin distillery. Then you can walk down the same road another half a mile, and you're at the Laphroaig distillery, and then yet another half a mile, and you're at the Atbeg distillery, and it's on a road that goes up from the beach at Port Ellen, and it goes up the side of this mountain on the coast, all of it right on the coast of the Isle of Islay, which is a basically a mountain that sticks up out of the fucking Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Scotland. I haven't been there, but it's a trip that I plan to take. No matter how mad my wife gets at me, I'm going to take a trip to Scotland, and I'm going to go to the Isle of Islay, and I'm going to go to these three distilleries because they're three of the consistently highest rated distilleries in the world, and they use fucking seawater, and they use peat bog moss from the island itself. From there's literally like a bog, like when you're if you were on this road, I've Google mapped my way up on the road. There's the street view. It's off to your right is either beach or sheer steep drop off down to Rocky Beach and then out to kind of that where you have the jutting rocks sticking up out of the water, the type of shit where like Luke Skywalker was hiding out in the new Star Wars movies. That's where they filmed that shit, is on these types of islands, where there's these fucking rocks sticking up out of the ocean, and then off to your left hand side when you're going up this road is probably a mile and a half, maybe even thinner, of just peat bog, of peat fucking bog, and maybe some light forest and some ponds and stuff like that. Here in America, we're going to call that a marsh. We don't have, I mean, we have bogs here in America, but like, that's a marsh, but that's like a really dank marsh off to your left, and then past the peat bogs, it goes up into a mountain. The, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful landscapes that you could go to. So I have a very, very, very high expectation and hope for when I finally make it to that island. And I'm probably going to go there with my buddies. That's not something that I would do with my family. Maybe if I never get to do it, and then when my son turns 18, I'd be like, dude, we're going to taste some scotch. We're going to Islay, because you can drink at 18 there, so I could take my 18-year-old son with me. That would probably be, but I'm going to go there one day, and I would encourage everybody to look it up. Islay is spelled Islay. And if you're into whiskey, hit the comment section. I'm fucking drunk off of beer right now. I'm not even drunk off of whiskey. Hit the comment section, hit the like and subscribe button, and say, dude, you need to tell us more about whiskey, because whiskey is mysterious. Nobody knows how certain whiskeys are made. The FDA is the only people outside of the distillery that knows how a lot of whiskey is made and how a lot of beer is made. It's such a close guarded trade that that there's that, and then there's these geographical mysteries that just fucking boggle the mind. They've taken Scotch companies have taken their distilling and they've taken their mash bill, they've taken their distilling method, their bottling method, their aging method, and they've brought it over and they've tried it in America and they've tried it in Canada, and literally exactly the same thing that they do in Ireland. And they've tried it, and they've produced whiskeys that taste nothing like the Scottish variants, and that's partially because there's regulations on whiskey that say that your cereals have to be domestically grown. I think Canadian whiskey might be the one exception to this. Canadian whiskey, like they can take you could take, for instance, wheat and barley that was grown in the United States or Ireland or Scotland, and you could use that to make Canadian whiskey. But Canadian whiskey is traditionally rye whiskey, and I don't know if they allow you to import rye or not, but I'm sure they do. And rye whiskey is getting pretty popular now, which is exciting for me. But Scotch makers they've taken their recipes and their methods and they've brought them to the United States and America, and they've had to legally use locally sourced crops to make their cereals, and they've legally had to use local water, because you can't, if you're going to distill something, you're not allowed to bring, you can't just like go to Scotland and get 50 gallons of Scottish water and bring it with you. You're not allowed to do that. You have to have locally sourced and regulated water to make your whiskey. So what those experiments have left whiskey experts and master distillers and scientists to conclude is there is something about Scottish crops and Scottish water that makes Scotch have such a unique taste, um, which is just adds this whole other level of fucking mystery to it. And then when you realize that they actually make bourbon in Scotland, they make bourbon in Ireland, but we make bourbon here in the United States too. We also make regular whiskey here in the United States too, just like they make Scotch and just like they make like um, Irish whiskey. Um, there's oh my god, there's so much going. The only like you find when you learn that the only difference between Kentucky bourbon and um, Tennessee whiskey, Kentucky bourbon and Tennessee whiskey, the only difference between them is when you're making Tennessee whiskey, you make Kentucky bourbon, but before you put it in the barrel to get aged, you take charcoal that's been soaked in maple and then you pour your whiskey, you pour your liquid through that charcoal and you put that charcoal on top of a filter and you pour your liquid through it and then you let the liquid fill up the barrel underneath. That's all they do to it is they take charcoal and they soak it, they marinate it in maple and then they put it through it and that's what gives it that harsh taste. And that's how you end up with Jack Daniels. Is Jack Daniels is Kentucky bourbon. Um, it's Kentucky bourbon, but they call it Tennessee whiskey, Old Number Seven, because they take it and they filter it through charcoal. And the only difference between Gentleman Jack and regular Jack Daniels is then when they take the whiskey out of the barrel before they put it in the bottle, they pick the best barrels, the barrels that are in the best places in the aging warehouse, where maybe the climate's a little bit better because you can climate control a warehouse, but the corners of the warehouse might get worse air circulation. In the very center of the warehouse might be a little bit colder or a little bit warmer depending on how you're filtering the air. So what they'll do is they'll take barrels from right around the middle circle and they'll pick a couple of those really good barrels and they'll test them out a little bit and they'll say, okay, these are the best barrels that we have, and then they filter them again as they bottle them, and that's Gentleman Jack, and you pay $10 a bottle more for it because they picked the best bottles for you, they figured out which are the best bottles, and then they took it and they filtered it through charcoal again. So anywho, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if you want to hear more about whiskey. This is my shit. I fucking love whiskey. And I love some Total War gaming. So subscribe to this shit. Hit the comment section. We're going to head to bed. Everybody have a fucking great night and drink whiskey.